It's obvious to anyone paying attention that it is becoming increasingly difficult to discern between what is real and what is fake. In fact, I'd say that in many areas such as our political landscape, it's now almost impossible. AI can create deepfakes in minutes. Media, both mainstream and social, is full of biased hit pieces, delusional opinion columns written as fact, and a constant barrage of content which, if not entirely fictional, at the very least is warped beyond any resemblance of authentic and honest discourse. Even our scientific institutions, the places we have relied on so heavily for the pursuit of truth, have become so corrupted that they no longer represent a trustworthy source on how to understand the world. But then, how do we navigate such a world in which searching for what is true and real can be such an energy-intensive and often fruitless endeavor? It's important to first know why we seek the truth. You probably know this intuitively, but it pays to also become conscious of it every once in a while, because by understanding why we do something and what the ultimate objective is, we can find other paths to that objective when the one we're on becomes obstructed. The reason that the truth is so important is that when we know what is true, we can accurately map reality, and we're far less likely to die, whether on a physical level or on an identity level. You know this from your own life. If you construct a false version of reality by lying, and you act as if it were true, eventually something will happen that causes this false version of reality to come crashing down, and you'll be forced to reevaluate what is true and what isn't. If you're in a marriage, for example, and you lie and pretend that it's a good marriage, that things are working well and there's nothing you need to be concerned about, when in reality, your wife is unhappy and there are issues that need to be taken care of, then eventually you'll wind up in a situation you can no longer ignore. Perhaps you catch your wife blatantly cheating with a neighbor. Or maybe one night at dinner she casually slides divorce papers across the table. When this happens and you can no longer hide from the truth, your perception of the world, of your relationship, and of yourself all come into question, and the result of which is usually the death of parts of you that were based on lies. The point is that the mechanism by which we can most accurately predict and map the terrain of reality is the truth. Now, increasingly, we have seen an attempt not to convince us of one version of reality or another, but an attempt instead to make it impossible for us to know what to believe altogether. Confusion and uncertainty are the outcomes of years of lies and falsities from institutions, media, and politicians. With AI technology making lies even more convincing, what alternative path or mechanism can we use to as accurately as possible map reality and avoid as much pain and death as we can? It's this question I hope to answer now. As it's become increasingly difficult to rely on external inputs, people of authority, media, etc., for the truth, I argue that it's necessary to turn inwards, to look at ourselves, to know what our values are. What is the direction we want to head in life? What do we wish to create in the world? What impact do we want to have? And what version of the world do we wish to manifest? When we understand this, we can use this compass to discern between not what is necessarily objectively true, but instead what will most likely lead to our intended outcome. It becomes not about what is objectively true out there, but what is subjectively useful relative to us. And we can overlay the information we receive with our values to see whether it aligns with us or not. If it does, we can trust that at the very least it's likely to help us. And if it doesn't align, whether it's true or not, then we can know that it's unlikely to help us in our lives. Let's take the example of a marriage again so I can hopefully make this point a little more clear. If you feel that something is not right in your relationship, whether you know for sure or not, if the future success of the marriage is aligned with your goals and values because you're someone who believes a healthy, stable, and loving relationship is important and is worth working on and fighting for, then you can act in a manner that sets up your marriage for success. You can address concerns you might have about the distance you and your wife are experiencing, and you can start repairing any corrosion in the relationship. Now, if you've misjudged things and everything is going well, this will also come out in the subsequent conversations. The above is a simple example, and one in which the discovery of the truth is relatively simple. Before we move on to a more nuanced example, I'd like to share with you a little more about how we as humans view reality as it helps give credibility to what might otherwise seem like a counterintuitive approach. If you had asked me, even 18 months ago, what is the truth? What is most real? I would have told you it's the thing that we can measure, see, and touch. It's not your feelings. Facts don't care about your feelings. But that's not really how we as humans view reality. We don't view simple facts. Instead, we see everything with meaning attached to it. Feelings actually don't care about your facts. We see the world as a series of pathways, obstacles, and tools in the context of whichever goal we are pursuing at that point in time. An example I like to use, and one I learned from Jordan Peterson in his Maps of Meaning lecture series, is that we only see a chair as a chair if we're looking for somewhere to sit. There is no such thing as a chair completely devoid of context and meaning. If we want to leave the room and there is a chair blocking the exit, that object, that chair, takes on a completely different meaning to us. We now see it as the obstacle stopping us from achieving our goal and not something to sit on. And this literally changes what this thing is in our mind. And everything in our lives is viewed in this way. Meaning is the defining factor of reality, not objective fact. So when it comes to knowing what is true or false, instead of focusing on what is literally true, in a world where it's becoming increasingly difficult to do so, focus on the meaning you give to the events or information you receive. Ask yourself, does acting as if this is true align correctly with my values, my long-term vision for my life, and my vision for reality, or not? Does believing this thing that I can't know right now help me or hurt me? We're so used to taking our view of reality from external sources, being told what to believe and what not to. But when those sources become corrupted, it's necessary to turn to our own powerful intuition and to start defining for ourselves what is useful and what isn't. This isn't to say you get to define what is and isn't true for others, as we've seen now across the culture war. An example of this is where certain individuals have attempted to redefine things that already have a clearly defined reality and force others to adopt this new definition, as is the case with the trans debate, for example. You only get to decide what is useful to you in cases where knowing the truth has become impossible. We don't necessarily need to know what the objective truth is. We just need to know what is useful to us. And this is the alternative path we can rely on to get to our objective, when a more objective or shared truth is not clear. Does it matter whether a particular news story is true or not? Well, it depends on the context of your life, and whether acting as if it is true leads to better outcomes for you now and in the future, or not. The challenge here is to truly understand yourself. What are your values? What is your direction? If you don't know that, you should figure it out as soon as possible, as everything you do, every decision you make must be in accordance with those things. Otherwise, you're bound to end up in a place you don't wish to be, wondering why your life isn't working out the way you want it. The good news is that this is something you can figure out for yourself. It's not something that you need to rely on external sources for to verify. Now, an added bonus is, because of the power that belief has on our biology and in creating outcomes, when we decide to believe something, we increase the likelihood of that belief coming true. Now, this is comparative to the placebo effect in medicine. If we believe a medicine will help us, we increase its effectiveness. This works whether it's a real medication or if it's just a sugar pill. Belief is powerful, so use it. So next time you're trying to work out what to believe, consider what the impact of your decision will have on you and the broader world, and choose the option that is more likely to lead you to a successful, enriched, and enjoyable life for yourself and for those around you. Then act in alignment with that belief. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing and sharing this video with anyone you think might benefit from it. All right, until next time, peace.